President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi addressed the extraordinary summit of the BRICS group via video conference on Tuesday. In his address to the summit, which was held to discuss the latest developments in the Middle East, President al-Sisi expressed appreciation for the decision of the BRICS summit in Johannesburg to invite Egypt to join the group, in which the country welcomed. The president expressed confidence that Egypt would exert effort to enhance cooperation and joint coordination with the group based on the principle of solidarity, mutual respect, as well as respect for international law. President al-Sisi said the BRICS summit took place at a critical time during which the Palestinians are witnessing a continuous escalation in the Gaza Strip and the West Bank, which claimed the lives of thousands of innocent civilians, 2/3 of whom were children and women. He added that the entire Gaza Strip has been exposed to collective punishment, siege, starvation, and forced displacement. The head of state affirmed that such cruel humanitarian scenes reveal the inability of the international community and the stagnation of human consciousness. The president revealed that Egypt had welcomed international efforts which are aimed at ceasefire and protection of civilian lives, foremost among which was the UN Security Council Resolution 2712, which called for an urgent need to reach a truce and an establishment of a humanitarian corridor to allow aid into the besieged Gaza Strip. President al-Sisi called on the international community to put pressure on Israel to comply with the implementation of the resolution as an occupation power. He further confirmed that Egypt has opposed and condemned the killing of civilians by all parties, as well as targeting civil facilities, especially hospitals. The president affirmed that the international community bears a humanitarian and political responsibility to save the civilians in Gaza and stop the inhumane practices that make life and living in Gaza impossible, forcing people to leave their homes and lands. Chinese President Xi Jinping on Tuesday urged all parties in the Gaza conflict to immediately cease fire, end all attacks against civilians, and release civilian detainees to avoid more loss of lives and suffering. At a virtual BRICS Leaders Summit, Xi also said it was important to ensure the safe and smooth passage of humanitarian relief, expand humanitarian aid to the people in Gaza, and to stop the forced relocation and cut off of water, electricity, and oil that targets the people of Gaza. Here's the story. Xi Jinping on Tuesday called for the release of civilian detainees and an immediate ceasefire in the war between Israel and Hamas as the Chinese president addressed a virtual summit of fellow BRICS leaders. Xi stressed that all parties in the conflict should immediately cease fire and hostilities, stop all violence and attacks targeting civilians, and release civilian detainees to avoid more loss of lives and suffering. He further called for an early convening of the International Peace Conference that was more authoritative to build international consensus for peace. According to Xi, such a conference would bring towards an early solution to the question of Palestine that is comprehensive, just and sustainable. The Chinese leader noted that there can be no sustainable peace and security in the Middle East without a just solution to the question of Palestine. He said that since the outbreak of the latest Palestinian-Israeli conflict, China has been working actively to promote peace talks and ceasefire. Xi also noted that Beijing had provided humanitarian assistance to help ease the case and plight in Gaza and would continue to do so. Pretoria is hosting a virtual meeting at BRICS, a group of major emerging economies that includes Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, aimed at drawing up a common response to the Israel-Hamas conflict. China has historically been sympathetic to the Palestinians and supportive of a state solution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Beijing has been calling for an immediate ceasefire since the start of the war last month. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi affirmed that Egypt is exerting its utmost effort to provide and deliver humanitarian support to the people of Gaza. During his meeting with the Minister of Social Solidarity, Naveen Qabbaj, the president also praised the role played by the Egyptian Red Crescent in this regard. The meeting also touched on the role of the National Council for caring for the injured and the families of the martyrs. The president expressed appreciation and respect to the Egyptian people for having their loyal sons who made the greatest sacrifices for the security of Egypt and people. The meeting also dealt with following up on the efforts undertaken by the Ministry of Social Solidarity to support the people with special needs. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi affirmed that he followed up the proceedings of the Prime Minister's statement before the House of Representatives, during which he expressed the state's constance towards the Egyptian national security and towards the Palestinian crisis. The President stressed that the state, with all its agencies and institutions, will continue to provide the necessary support for the Palestinian cause at all levels. He rejected any attempts to liquidate the Palestinian cause. President al-Sisi also called on all parties to raise their voices and wisdom to activate the concerned international resolutions. A general session of the Parliament was held to discuss the escalating situation in Gaza on Tuesday with the participation of Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouli. The session discussed briefing requests to Premier Madbouli over measures to prevent the forced resettlement of Palestinians away from the Gaza Strip. The story. Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouli addressed a general session of the House of Representatives on measures the government had taken to prevent the forced displacement of Palestinians from the Gaza Strip. Madbouli expressed a total rejection of moving Palestinians in the Gaza Strip to Egyptian lands, saying it is a threat to Egyptian sovereignty and integrity. The Prime Minister said that he followed with a great interest parliamentary motions regarding state efforts to prevent attempts to forcibly displace Palestinians from the Gaza Strip. In this respect, Madbouli reviewed Egyptian efforts and measures taken to prevent attempts at forced displacement from the Strip. Madbouli emphasized the full Egyptian solidarity and support for the Palestinian people in the current plight and continuation with the Egyptian historical role towards the Palestinian cause. The Prime Minister hailed the Egyptian role towards the Palestinian cause, adding that the country had sacrificed and would continue to sacrifice for the Palestinian people, indicating that these briefings reflect an accurate and clear understanding of the challenges that face Egypt. Madbouli pointed to the economic pressures Egypt is exposed to and the effects of the political leadership vision which has secured Egypt's economy and strengthened the Egyptian army. Foreign Minister Sameh Shoukry arrived in Russia on Tuesday, the second stop of a tour of foreign capitals by an Arab Islamic delegation aimed at discussing diffusing escalation in Gaza. The top diplomat holds talks with Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov in Moscow over the unprecedented escalation in Gaza and means of reaching a ceasefire and allowing humanitarian aid sustainably into the enclave. The delegation had started the mission in China, where Shoukry said the Israeli policy of delaying aid into Gaza is systemic and aims to force the Palestinians to leave the enclave under heavy bombardment and tight siege. The ministerial delegation called for the immediate ceasefire in Gaza and to allow aid into the enclave. Head of the Arab Parliament, Adil al-Assoumi, said the parliament would file a lawsuit on behalf of the Arab people at the International Criminal Court against Israelis for crimes in Palestine and Gaza. Al-Assoumi was speaking at a press conference held to announce details of the international move to face crimes against the Palestinians in Gaza and Palestine as a whole. He said the parliament is always in support